Before beginning any program, you should have reinforcement ready. And remember reinforcement sampling and preference assessments. Preference assessment being allowing the person a forced choice. Do you want this or this? And reinforcement sampling is when you let that person have a little bit of the reinforcer, see if they'll actually like it. So if, let's say you are using like M&Ms, you give them like one M&M for free to say, hey, look what I got. Or if you're using a favorite toy, let them play with the toy for a few seconds. Remember, for something to be considered reinforcement, it must have these two qualities. They both must be present. It must follow the behavior, therefore it is a consequence. And that behavior must increase in the future. So again, for something to be considered reinforcement, it must follow the behavior, therefore a consequence. And that behavior must increase in the future. Reinforcement contingencies, or the idea of a contingency. A contingency is sort of like a contract. If you do this, you get this. Where this happens, this happens. As an RBT, strive to be predictable and consistent. Don't let the patient control the session, but rather provide reinforcement type actions for the desirable behavior. Ignore or redirect undesirable behavior. Remember, as an RBT, you can control the antecedents and the consequences. Don't let that person, the patient, get access to reinforcement or other desirable items for engaging in undesirable or problematic behavior. Remember, you are the RBT. The patient is not in control of the session. You are guiding the session. Yes, they are going to sometimes engage in behaviors that are problematic. It is your role as an RBT to use behavior management skills and reinforcement skills to promote desirable behavior and to ignore or redirect the undesirable behavior. And remember to develop those contingencies with the individual. If you do this, this will happen. First we do this, then this. Remember, a contingency is like a contract. Basically saying that when this happens, if you do this, this happens. Or when this happens, this happens. First, you have to do this, then this happens. So, what are reinforcers? Reinforcers are the items or activities or actions that you will use to reinforce correct responses. Honestly, they can be just about anything. I have used pictures of ceiling fans. I have used staplers. I have used marbles as reinforcers. I have used silly voices, drawings, toys, praise, just about anything. But of course there are some considerations that you want to make. Reinforcers should be easy to deliver. They should be small enough to be able to transport or hide. Basically, you have to be able to be in control of them. They should not readily be available for that patient throughout the day. Otherwise, remember, they won't be in that deprivation state. I put on here they shouldn't be too pricey, because if we have to get them, right, if we have to buy some of them for reinforcement, we don't want to spend tons of money doing that. They shouldn't be something that are really that the person is really resistant to giving back once they have access to it. So if you use an item but they have a 10-minute tantrum every single time you have to get it back, then that's probably going to be counterproductive for the session. And it should be something that can be enjoyed for a few seconds, because you're probably going to have to get it back from them pretty quickly. Remember, we're trying to do as many trials as we possibly can. And something I didn't put on here is that they should be approved by the parent or the guardian. For example, I was working with a patient one time. Chocolate chips were very reinforcing for that patient. They would do just about anything for them. But the parent didn't want the person to eat sugar, so we had to stop. Even though they were good reinforcers, because the parent or guardian didn't want us to do it. Remember, it's their child. It's their patient. They are responsible for them. We listen to them. So that is one consideration you should definitely take as well. So, when to use reinforcement? We use reinforcement throughout the session. We use it for correct responses. At the beginning or for difficult tasks, we're probably going to be reinforcing every single correct response. For known responses or stuff that is not difficult for the learner, we can do every 2 to 3 responses or more. Again though, this is very difficult to say. I don't know what kind of patient you'll be working with. And remember, we can always give some sort of social response or some sort of acknowledgement that the person got it right. I use smiles and high fives and thumbs up a lot. The point is though, is that for those hard tasks or difficult tasks, we want to give higher levels of reinforcement. And for known or easier tasks, probably lower levels or less frequent reinforcement. When not to use reinforcement. Of course, after they engage in a problem behavior, we don't want to reinforce problem behavior. One time when I was first doing this, a kid hit me on the head, and I basically said, "Ouch, that kind of hurt. Here, play with this while I write out this incident report." So I reinforced that child, that patient, for hitting me on the head. So again, we want to avoid using any kind of reinforcement when that person is engaging in problematic behavior. We don't want to inadvertently reinforce the problem behavior. As an RBT, you will use contingencies of reinforcement to work on skill acquisition, also known as teaching skills. Again, as an RBT, you will use this contingencies of reinforcement, to work on teaching them items that address the skill deficits in their lives. So basically, whatever they need help with, we're going to be using reinforcement contingencies to improve their skill set.